I feel like every successful or wealthy public figure has said or echoed something along the lines of the first $100,000 is the hardest. And that's always stuck with me in the back of my head, but it hasn't been until recently that I started to understand realistically why. From time to time, at least I know myself, I would pull out the compound interest calculator, I'd put some numbers in, run some numbers, a couple different scenarios, and then I would say to myself, okay, I just need to get to X and it will be all downhill from there. And don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily a bad thing to do that and to understand numbers and scenarios and compound interest. But it wasn't until recently that I was able to rethink the saying and understand why the first 100K is the hardest. So recently I read a book and I'm halfway through the second book, or I guess the first book, on the similar topic. And what the first book was that I read was Transurfing in 78 Days. Heard about this book for a long time. It's been years that I've known about it, but I just never grabbed or got around to reading it. I think I looked on Audible and it wasn't available, and so at the time I never got it. And recently I've started reading again, and which maybe for the first like real time in a while, and I finally decided to buy the book on Amazon. Now, the second book that I've read, or I guess technically it's the source material for the first book, which is called Reality Transurfing. Now, this book is thick. This book is not. This book has big text. This book has small text. This one is taking me a long ass time to read. However, the reason why I am reading it is because it's going deeper into the concept. And the deeper that I get into the concepts around transurfing, the more it starts to make sense and the more I can relate it to different aspects of my life. And one of those aspects is that first 100K being the hardest. Now, am I talking specifically about the first 100K? No, it could be about the first million. It could be about the first 300K. Everyone's situation is different. You might be looking to make your first 10,000 if you're, in school or you're just starting out. Everyone is in a different situation. So the dollar amount, I'm just using that as like a rough kind of guide, but don't necessarily get too caught up on it being specifically $100,000. But my eyes have been opened to why that first $100,000 is so hard, and it gets easier after that. Now, it all comes down to importance. Importance. The concept of reducing importance is one of the biggest pillars to transurfing reality, or to, if you wanted to practice transurfing in your own life. And if you read these books, you'll understand why. And maybe the idea of why doesn't really click with you right now, but I'm going to try to make it make more sense. The idea of reducing something's importance sounds counterintuitive. If I want to make $100,000, if I want to make $1 million, right? Shouldn't I be all in, focused on my goal? That's what I want. I am going to get there. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to rip through. I'm going to push through. I'm going to scratch. I'm going to claw until I get there. In theory, that's kind of the way to do it, right? Oh, that's how you should do it. That's how we traditionally think. That's how society almost teaches us to go after a goal, right? Be aggressive, focus on it, all consumed, let's go. The problem with that is you end up fighting upstream. When something gets challenging, a lot of what we are being told these days, especially if you get into this sector of the internet, is to push through. And I'm not saying don't push through when something gets hard. Personally, I recently started running ultra marathons, and that shit's one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I find like an enjoyment in pushing through and doing the hard thing. Like, it's awesome. In a couple of days, I have a 57-mile race lined up, which is going to be the longest I've ever run in one day. So I'm not for being a pussy or being soft necessarily. But what I'm saying is that when we are fighting against something upstream, right, and we are focusing on what's in front of us, what we are fighting through, what our current challenges are, and we're like, oh my gosh, I just got to figure this out. Oh my God, I can't figure this out. I can't do this. To get to that 100K, I got to just figure out how to do this strategy. I got to figure out how to get access to money and capital, and then figure out what stocks to trade. When we are focused on what's challenging, that's all we're thinking about. We're consciously thinking about what's so hard, what's challenging, versus if we drop the importance of the challenge, we end up focusing on the good, focusing on the things that are working, focusing on what we can do to get there, not focusing on what's in front of us. And it allows us to, instead of go upstream and fight the current, it allows us to ride the current and then just direct the boat in the direction that we want to go around the obstacles, instead of trying to push through every single obstacle with as much force as possible. We're going to be taking away from our creative energy. We're taking away from energy that could be meant and could be put towards the things that are, I don't want to say easy, but towards the things that are getting us closer towards that goal, in this case, $100,000. So bring it back to the important. It's easy to put excessive importance on the things that are challenging and the problems that we have, yet on the things that are easy or that come with ease and that we kind of just work right through, those things we don't really think much about. I just do them, it's easy, I get it done. So let me bring it into now an example. You could be someone who has 2 jobs, maybe you're a photographer over here and that's easy, you love doing that, and then you want to make some more money, so you get an extra sales job, which is a remote sales job, but you find it really tough to close people over the phone. So we spend so much time worrying about trying to close and how do we improve ourselves that we're taking away from our energy that we could be spending towards getting better clients, doing higher ticket events, maybe things like weddings, etc. And so we tie this importance to the thing that's hard. And that is perfectly tied to money. When we don't have a lot of it, it's very difficult to pull the importance away, because we need it to survive, to pay the rent, to pay the house, right? To pay the car, insurance, food, especially food these days, right? Especially if you want to eat good. If you want to eat good food, I mean, it's not cheap. So when you tie this importance to money and achieving that first 100K, you see why it's so difficult. But once you get past that, maybe it's 100K a year, maybe it's 100K in the bank saved, maybe it's $1 million. And the number might have to go higher over time, right? Because 100K, I feel like we've been saying for a long time, but as you know, inflation and stuff, maybe that's more like 150 or 200K nowadays. But once you have that, the importance of $1 substantially drops, because your basics, your needs, your necessities are met. And $1 matters a lot less than 10, than 100, than 1,000 once you're above 100K. So money, or achieving or making money, is less of the focus, and more of the focus can flow towards the business, towards your day-to-day, towards the things that actually make you money compared to the object itself, the dollar. I mean, think about it, right? The more money you make, the easier it is to just swipe the credit card, or to toss $100, or to, toss on a big tip at the end of your bill. It's easy to do so when you have a lot of it, because it doesn't matter. So when you have more, or when you decrease the importance of the dollar, it makes it that much easier to make more of it. So if you're someone who is maybe not where you want to be, the solution is not necessarily push, scratch, claw to make $1. It's try to see if you can decrease the significance or the importance of the dollar, even if you don't have a lot of money right now. And I'd be very curious to see if it now becomes easier to make more money because you now care about money less. It's not necessarily easy to do, but if you have the conscious awareness to start to decrease the importance of the dollar, this could be a really big key in getting you to that next level or to that goal. Hope that made some sense. Hope it was helpful. I'll leave some links and resources down below like always. Maybe even subscribe and like the video if you thought it was cool. Peace.